Hello?
Anybody?
మీరు నేర్చుకున్నారు ప్రభా నీళ్ళు మెడిటేషన్.
Compost అయిందా అది?
తెస్తున్నారు కదా వన్ ఆఫ్ ద ప్లేట్. I'm also not that expert on it's Yashoda Yashoda
श्री श्री निताय चैतन्य चंद्र की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, श्री राधा माधव की जय, ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, निताय गौर प्रमानंद। That one could. It'll be easier, I think, on Zoom for the backlight. This one, yeah. Yeah, let's do that. The backlight on Zoom. Okay, that's perfect. Okay. So thank you all so much for coming for the third part of our series on Bali Maharaj and Vamanadev. And yesterday, I think we reached up until, let's see, you know?
It's end of 1924.
Huh?
24.
24. Okay. So let's move ahead a little bit. Start with text 28 in order to make sure we get to the point where we want to this time. Okay, I want to cover quite a few verses today, so we're going to do a bit of reading here. So today's section is going to be on the Bali Maharaj's rejection of his teacher, Shukracharya, and Shukracharya's reasons for stopping Bali Maharaj from giving everything to Krishna, and then Bali Maharaj's reasons for rejecting that instructions. Okay, so let's start with Canto 8, Chapter 19, text number 28. So 8, 19, 28. Everyone have it, please. Okay, please repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, Canto 8, Chapter 19, called Lord Vamanadev Begs Charity from Bali Maharaj, text number 28. Shri Shukovacha Ityukta Sahasan Aha Vanchata Pratigrihyatam Manaya Mahim Datum Jagraha Jalabhajanam. Shukadev Goswami continued, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead had thus spoken to Bali Maharaj, Bali smiled and told him, all right, take whatever you like. To confirm his promise to give Vamanadev the desired land, he then took up his water pot. So when you make a sankalpa, then you do it with water. Right? Always you take water in the hand. And then... So he's getting ready to make it official, his promise. Vishnave Kshmam Pradasyantam Ushana Asureshwaram Janangsh Chikirshitam Vishnu Shishyam Praha Vidambara. Understanding Lord Vishnu's purpose, Shukracharya, the best of the learned, immediately spoke as follows to his disciple, who was about to offer everything to Lord Vamadev. Shri Shukrovacha Esha Vairochane Saksha Bhagavan Vishnuravya Kashyapadadir Jato Devanam Karya Sadhaka. Shukracharya said, O son of Virochan, this brahmachari in the form of a dwarf is directly the imperishable Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Accepting Kashyapa Muni as his father and Aditi as his mother, he has now appeared in order to fulfill the interests of the demigods. So he's noting two things here. One, he's calling him the son of Virochan. And what was Virochan's story? That his father, Virochan, had given everything to the demigods as a result of them cheating him. Basically, they came in the disguise of Brahmins, and they knew that Virochan would never say no to anything given to Brahmins. And so they came in that disguise, and still Virochan gave everything, right? So it's very odd here, because he's calling him the son of Virochan, but that example of Virochan would actually encourage him to do this. And then the second thing is, he knows that he is Bhagavan Vishnu Avyaya. He's calling him not just any Deva, but he's actually Vishnu himself, the Supreme Lord. He knows Avyaya, he's imperishable. So he knows God himself is here. He knows that his family tradition requires it. And still he's going to tell him no. Why? Because of personal interest. Yeah? Yeah, own interest, right? So you can see how clearly he is not fit to be spiritual master, because he's materially motivated. Okay, so text 31. Pratishrutam tvayaitasmai yad anartham ajanata sadhu manye daityana mahan upagato naya. You do not know what a dangerous position you have accepted by promising to give him land. I do not think that this promise is good for you. It will bring great harm to the demons. What is good materially may not be good spiritually, and what is good spiritually may not be good materially. So this is, of course, very good for Bali Maharaj. But he's saying it's not good for you. It's going to take away your money. And of course, this is going to be the safest position for him under Krishna's lotus feet. And yet he's calling it a very dangerous position. Eshate sthanam aishwaryam Shriyam tejo yashashrutam Dasyatyaachidya shakraya Maya manavako hari. This person falsely appearing as a brahmachari is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari, who has come in this form to take away all your land, wealth, beauty, power, fame, and education. And after taking everything from you, he will deliver it to Indra, your enemy. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains in this regard that the very word Hari means one who takes away. If one connects himself with Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord takes away all his miseries. And in the beginning, the Lord also superficially appears to take away all his material possessions, reputation, education, and beauty. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Yasyaham anugrahnami harishye tadhanam shanai. The Lord said to Maharaj Yudhishthir, the first installment of my mercy toward a devotee is that I take away all his possessions, especially his material opulence, his money. This is the special favor of the Lord towards a sincere devotee. If a sincere devotee wants Krishna above everything, but at the same time is attached to material possessions, which hinder his advancement in Krishna consciousness, by tactics, the Lord takes away all his possessions. Here, Shukracharya says that this dwarf brahmachari would take away everything. Thus, he indicates that the Lord will take away all one's material possessions and also one's mind. If one delivers his mind to the lotus feet of Krishna, Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vindayo, one can naturally sacrifice everything to satisfy him. Although Bali Maharaj was a devotee, he was attached to material possessions, and therefore the Lord, being very kind to him, showed him special favor by appearing as Lord Vaman to take away all his material possessions and his mind as well. So Shukracharya is right. Worshipping Krishna is very dangerous. He takes away everything. And see, he has all the knowledge. Shukracharya is not ignorant. He is a very knowledgeable person. He's saying that the Lord is called Hari, and his name itself means one who takes away. So what is this? We'll talk about this point more tomorrow. Today I want to focus on Shukracharya's qualities. So, is there someone behind this wall?
No.
No, everyone is here.
Oh.
Okay. So maybe we can move up a little bit here. So Vasakapu, you can come here. And yeah, you come forward. And Shamgid Haipro, please come so we can see you. Oh, he's looking for. Rishikesh, move a little this way so you can see. Okay. Okay, text 33 also. Ribhi kramair imaloka Vishwakaya kramishyati Sarvasvam Vishnave Dattva Tishyase Katham You have promised to give him 3 steps of land in charity, but when you give it, he will occupy the 3 worlds. You are a rascal. You do not know what a great mistake you have made. After giving everything to Lord Vishnu, you will have no means of livelihood. How then shall you live? Srila Prabhupada's purport. Bali Maharaj might argue that he had promised only 3 steps of land, but Shukracharya, being a very learned Brahmin, immediately understood that this was a plan of Hari, who had falsely appeared there as a brahmachari. The words Mudha Vartishyase Katham reveal that Shukracharya was a Brahmin of the priestly class. Such priestly Brahmins are mostly interested in receiving remuneration from their disciples. Therefore, when Shukracharya saw that Bali Maharaj had risked all of his possessions, he understood that this would cause havoc not only to the king, but also to the family of Shukracharya, who was dependent on Maharaj Bali's mercy. This is the difference between a Vaishnava and a Smartha Brahman. A Smartha Brahman is always interested in material profit, whereas a Vaishnava is interested only in satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. From the statement of Shukracharya, it appears that he was in all respects a Smartha Brahman, interested only in personal gain. Okay, let's read a few more and then we'll discuss. Kramato gam padaikena Vitiyena divam vibho Chakayena mahata Tartiyasya kuto gati. Vamanadev will first occupy the 3 worlds with 1 step. Then he will take his 2nd step and occupy everything in outer space. And then he will expand his universal body to occupy everything. Where will you offer him the 3rd step? Tarti yasya kuto gati. He knows everything. He can say exactly what the future is going to be. So there was no shortage of qualification on Shukracharya's part. Nishtham te narake manye yapradatu pratishrutam pratishrutasya yonisha pratipadayatum bhavam. You will certainly be unable to fulfill your promise, and I think that because of this inability, your eternal residence will be in hell. Nataddanam prashansanti yena vrittir vipadyate tam yajñastapah karma ke vrittimato yata. Learned scholars do not praise that charity which endangers one's own livelihood. Charity, sacrifice, austerity, and fruitive activities are possible for one who is competent to earn his livelihood. They are not possible for one who cannot maintain himself. Dharmaya yashaserthaya kamaya svajanaya cha panchadha vibhajan vittam ihamutra cha modate. Therefore, one who is in full knowledge should divide his accumulated wealth in 5 parts: for religion, for reputation, for opulence, for sense gratification, and for the maintenance of family members. Such a person is happy in this world and in the next. Atrapi bafrichair gitam Shrinu me surasutta sattama Satyam om iti yat proktam Yannetyahanritam hitat. One might argue that since you have already promised, How can you refuse? O best of the demons, just take from me the evidence of the Bhricha Shruti, which says that a promise is truthful preceded by the word Om and untruthful if not. So he's putting together a very good argument. He's quoting Shastra to say that actually there's a way out, because in any kind of smarta vidhi, there's always a way out. Any difficult situation you're in, there's always some, it's called upaya, right? So some way of getting out. So he's giving him a way out by quoting Shastra, Shruti. He's telling him what the Dharma Shastras say, what your wealth is made for. And he's saying only 1/5, 20% is for religion, right? I mean, here you're going to give 100%, but 20% is for religion. Then you need to keep 20% for reputation, 20% for your own comfort, your opulence and sense gratification, and then 20% for family members. So this is the Shukracharya's math of how to of how to divide one's wealth. Right? Rupa Goswami gives a much more severe book of mathematics. He says, what does he say?
50-50.
Yeah, 50-50. There's 50% for Krishna. Yeah. There's a couple different calculations. One is 50-50, the most kind of significant one. And then there's also the 25-25.
25-25.
Yeah, 50-25-25. Thank you. Yeah, that's good. So 50% for Krishna, 25% for yourself, and 25% for emergency family members. Yeah. In the Christian tradition, you have something called tithing, so, right, where you give a certain percentage.
Yeah, to church and
10%.
Yeah.
10%? Wow. Okay.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and yes. There's a name for it. Zakat, they call it. Which is their number is smaller. It's 2.5% is the minimum for zakat, which is charity.
Why they end up with 0.5?
I don't know. I don't know the background.
No. Could be something, right?
Yeah. 2.5%.
Yeah.
For Christians is 10%. And in the LDS church, they check, as in you, is 10% of your income, your not post taxes, before taxes. So you have to give 10%.
That would really do that.
This is why I'm saying Rupa Goswami says 50%. But the point is, we can at least learn from the Christians, no?
That's true.
At least we can, at least that level we can do.
No, in
Jains also do this.
Jains also do 10 to 15.
Swaminarayan is 15%. It's 15?
1.5.
1.5.
In Navina Radha Mataji heard 50% and then 15%. Then 10% was sounding really good. Keep it at 10. Good balance. Okay. So now let's move ahead a little bit, and I want to read Bali Maharaj's reply, which is very, very good. He says, yeah, so let's move to text 1 of the next chapter. So this is chapter 20, text 1. And this is Prabhupada's very masterful answer to this question of how can you reject your guru? This is the question that Gunashekar asked a couple days ago. You remember? Yeah. So finally we get to answer that question. Okay. Yes, I hope so too. So this is text number 1 of 20. Shri Shukovacha Balir evam grihapati Mulacharyena bhashita Shnim bhutva kshanam rajan Vacha to gurum Sri Shukadev Goswami said, O King Parikshit, when Bali Maharaj was thus advised by his spiritual master, Shukracharya, his family priest, he remained silent for some time, and then, after full deliberation, he replied to his spiritual master as follows. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks that Bali Maharaj remained silent at a critical point. How could he disobey the instruction of Shukracharya, his spiritual master? It is the duty of such a sober personality as Bali Maharaj to abide by the orders of his spiritual master immediately, as his spiritual master had advised. But Bali Maharaj also considered that Shukracharya was no longer to be accepted as a spiritual master, for he had deviated from the duty of a spiritual master. According to Shastra, the duty of the Guru is to take the disciple back home, back to Godhead. If he is unable to do so and instead hinders the disciple in going back to Godhead, he should not be a Guru. Guru nasasyat. One should not become a Guru if he cannot enable his disciple to advance in Krishna consciousness. The goal of life is to become a devotee of Lord Krishna so that one may be freed from the bondage of material existence. Tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna. The spiritual master helps the disciple attain this stage by developing Krishna consciousness. Now, Shukracharya has advised Bali Maharaj to deny the promise to Vamanadev. Under the circumstances, therefore, Bali Maharaj thought that there would be no fault if he disobeyed the order of his spiritual master. He deliberated on this point. Should he refuse to accept the advice of his spiritual master, or should he independently do everything to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead? He took some time. Therefore, it is said, Tushnim bhutva kshanam rajan uvacha vahito gurum. After deliberating on this point, he decided that Lord Vishnu should be pleased in all circumstances, even at the risk of ignoring the Guru's advice to the contrary. Anyone who is supposed to be a Guru, but who goes against the principle of Vishnu Bhakti, cannot be accepted as Guru. If one has falsely accepted such a Guru, one should reject him. Such a Guru is described as follows. Guror api avaliptasya karya karyam ajanata utpatha pratipannasya parityago vidhiyate. Srila Jiva Goswami has advised that such a useless Guru, a family priest acting as Guru, should be given up, and that the proper bona fide Guru should be accepted. Shat karma nipuno vipro mantra tantra visharada avaishnavo guru nasyad vaishnava shvapacho guru. A scholarly Brahman expert in all subjects of Vedic knowledge is unfit to become a spiritual master without being a Vaishnava. But if a person born in a family of a lower caste is a Vaishnava, he can become a spiritual master. Okay, let's just read two more verses and then we'll stop. Shri Balirovacha Satyam Bhagavata Proktam Dharmoyam Grihamedhinam Artham Kamam Yasho Vrittim Yona Badhe Takarhichit. Bali Maharaj said, as you have already stated, the principle of religion that does not hinder one's economic development, sense gratification, fame, and means of livelihood is the real occupational duty of the householder. I also think that this religious principle is correct. Sachaham vitta lobhena pratyachakshe katham dvijam pratishrutya dadamiti prahrade kitavo yatha. I am the grandson of Maharaj Prahlad. How can I withdraw my promise because of greed for money, which I have already said, when I have already said that I shall give this land? How can I behave like an ordinary cheater, especially towards a Brahmin? Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnana Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave. Bali Maharaj continues this discussion by saying, giving all the points about how untruthfulness, dishonesty is the worst thing possible. He says that Mother Earth can hold any burden on her. She holds so many huge mountains like the Himalayas upon her body, and she does not mind lifting that weight. But the one burden she cannot hold is someone who's a liar, a cheater, dishonest, a hypocrite. And then he concludes that discussion by saying, if this Brahman really is Lord Vishnu, who is worshipped by Vedic hymns, he would never give up his widespread reputation. Either he would lie down having been killed by me, or he would be killed by me in my fight. He says, even if he irreligiously arrests me or even kills me, I shall not retaliate, although he is my enemy. So, Shukracharya, the instructions that he was giving, right, the reasons he was giving, that he is, the scriptures say that if you don't recite Om first, the promise is not necessary. It's not sealed. That that this is not an actual situation of charity because he is being cheated. This person who is asking for charity does not need any money, right? So he's not a proper recipient of charity. The fact that if he gives this charity, in fact, he will lose everything. And it is his duty to keep something for himself so he can maintain himself. There's no way you can do pious activities. You can do dharma if you have nothing, right? All these points that he's making, are they true? Are they correct?
As per Shastra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's genuine.
Yes. All these points are correct. Shukracharya is greatly learned, and he's even able to predict the future. He's seeing exactly the consequences of this decision. In fact, so learned he is that not only is he predicting that the Lord will take away everything, which you might say, well, that's to be expected from his past experience of what Vishnu does, right? He takes everything away from the demons and gives to the demigods. So maybe it's just a general prediction. But so learned he is that he's able to predict the very specific way in which the Lord is going to do it. You remember, he says that he's going to expand himself. The first step, he will cover everything on this earth, and second step, everything in heaven, and third step, you will not have a place to give it to. And he's predicting that as a result of that, you're going to reside in hell. And that's also true, right? Kind of. The Lord gives him a planet in the lower planetary systems, in Sutala, which is one of the hellish planets, right? It's an odd place because it's actually a very opulent lower planet. But everything that he's saying is 100% correct, right? It's 100% true. There's no lack in knowledge from Shukracharya. And even there's no lack in good intentions. Right? Means Shukracharya is trying his best to help his disciple. And he's predicting that if you do not follow my instructions, everything will be lost. And his prediction is 100% true. Right? In fact, after Bali Maharaj says this, then Shukracharya becomes angry and he curses him. He says, because you have disobeyed my instruction, therefore you will lose everything. Which also shows us that if we disobey the instructions of our spiritual master, everything is lost. Right? Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado, yasya prasadan nagati kutum. So actually, Krishna even honors that point in this story.
Yes.
Right? That if you disobey your guru's instruction, then yes, you're going to lose everything. So on one level, Shukracharya's instructions are just perfect, right? There's nothing wrong with what he's saying. Nothing wrong. So then what's the issue? Like what's the problem here? What's he missing? He's got jnana, he understands karma really well. But he's missing something that is at the heart of the whole purpose of why we do these things, which is bhakti. So this brings up a point that when we think of the idea of a spiritual master, of guru, then we have to recognize that there are different gurus for different purposes. Shukracharya's instructions were perfect for someone who is a kul guru. Kul guru means a family priest, right, or a smarta guru. The purpose of the family priest is to help you perform pious activities so that your life is prosperous and happy. This is the purpose. They come and they do the name-giving ceremony for your child. Why? So the child will grow up to be prosperous and happy. They come to do vivaha sanskar. Why? So that the couple will be prosperous and happy as a married couple. They come to your house to do griha pravesh, the entry into the house. Why? So that your house will be a peaceful and prosperous place. Right? So the role of the kul guru is very specific, which is to perform pious activities in such a way that your material situation will be peaceful and prosperous. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what is wrong is when you take that person's advice for something else for which they are not equipped. Just like if you go to your kul guru and you ask the kul guru, so what is the best way to build my house so it's structurally sound? Then your house is likely to fall apart if you take his instructions in that matter, unless your kul guru happens to be a qualified structural engineer. Right? For that, you need someone else. You need a structural engineer to help you with that. If you go to ask your math teacher about literature, you may or may not get a good answer. And if you go to your literature teacher, your English teacher, about math questions, your teacher may say, I don't know any math. I didn't do well in math, right?
Yeah.
So for every purpose, there's guru. For every type of activity, guru is needed. Sometimes people will go to a sannyasi and ask detailed questions about their married life. It's not going to be very effective. What the sannyasi will tell you is how to finish your marriage life and take sannyasi. That's his role. He wants to help you renounce this material. That's what he has done, right? So he'll teach you how to be detached. But if you're trying to figure out how to make things work between husband and wife, then we need to go to someone who is actually expert in that area, right? This is called ashram guru, someone who understands that ashram you are in, which is grihastha ashram. And that person can guide you in that area of how to. And then you ask the ashram guru, how do I become renounced from this ashram? The ashram guru will not help in that area or may give you incorrect advice. So the point is we have to recognize that there's a purpose and qualification for guru. When we take when we take a teacher or guru who is unqualified for the purpose for which we are looking, then we are misled. We are misled in this world. And ultimately then, if we're looking for someone who is a spiritual master, that is a sadguru, someone who is actually going to help us on the path back to Godhead or spiritual realization, then we have to choose that guru very carefully. And too often, we end up choosing a spiritual master who is unqualified, and that person then uses their position to exploit their disciples. And there's so many examples of this all over, where people find gurus who mislead them because that guru's motivation is something else. Even they may be qualified. Right? Someone may ask us, what do you think of such and such guru? They may be a very good guru, but if they're not acting according to their qualification, then they're cheating their disciples. And so this is the problem with Shukracharya here, that he is acting in this situation. He is out of his. This is beyond his pay grade, right? This is out of his range, his expertise. Now Krishna himself is here to deal with his devotee, and Shukracharya has no idea how to handle the situation. He is still seeing it from the perspective of an ordinary beggar. If an ordinary beggar came, he knows all the rules. What this is how much you should give, and this is how much you should keep, and this is how you should say Om, and this is how you should do the Sankalpa. He can arrange everything for the purpose of giving ordinary charity. But now that Krishna has arrived, he knows Krishna has arrived. He does not know his own limits. He's acting beyond his own limits, right? Beyond his pay grade. And just like when I work as a department head at the university, if someone comes to me for a question of, oh, I need funding for this and this event that we're holding, then I can help give that person advice. I can dispense that funding. But if this person comes for the purpose of saying, oh, I want to, change the structure of this degree, of the history degree we offer, or I want to hire this person or fire this person, and if I act on my own accord, then I will be fired. Why? Because there are certain decisions that are held by the dean, and they're not within my purview, my range of authority. I have certain things within my range of authority. There are other things that are in the range of the dean's authority. There are other things in the range of another department head's authority. And if I don't know the limits of my authority, then what will happen eventually is, well, two things will happen. One is I will make a false promise to that person who's coming. I'll say, oh, yeah, you can do this, no problem. And that person will get in trouble for doing something that is not authorized. And as a result, I will get fired from my position, right? So this is what's happening to Shukracharya. He knows Bhagavan, Ishvaro, Hari. This is the Lord. He says, Bhagavan Vishnu Avyaya, he says. That he knows that this is Vishnu. This is not an ordinary beggar. He is Avyaya. He is imperishable. He knows that. And yet, he is not backing off. He is not telling Bali Maharaj, I am not qualified to deal with this situation. Instead, he is behaving like he is very qualified. And as a result, he is giving perfect advice that is perfectly inapplicable to this situation. Right? It has no application in this situation. It's excellent advice that would apply in some other situation, but not this one. And as a result, Shukracharya will get fired. Bali Maharaj says, nope, this is not something I'm going to do. And Srila Prabhupada points out, he emphasizes several times in that purport that he thinks first before he does this. He's silent for some time, because it is never an easy decision to let go of one's teacher. Like this is one of the biggest offenses you can do. Even Arjun also in Bhagavad Gita, his biggest challenge is that this is what is that verse? I forget the verse, but in the beginning of chapter 2, no prapashyad. He says that I cannot, it's better if these people kill me than I kill those who are worthy of my worship. He says, these people are worthy of my worship. They're my elders, they're my seniors. So you can never do this just willy-nilly. You have to always think before. And so Prabhupada says he thinks carefully, what should I do? Because on the one hand, I have to always follow the instruction of my guru. On the other hand, my guru is giving me a terrible instruction. So what do I do in this situation? You have to make the decision very, very carefully. And that's number one. We have to make that decision very carefully. And number two, we have to realize that even if that decision is perfect, is the right decision, there will be consequences. That if you reject the instruction of a superior, even if you should reject that instruction, and even if that instruction is imperfect, still there will be some consequences that you have to be prepared to accept in that decision. Means that's part of the price. And you have to be prepared that, yes, even though I was right in making this decision, but still there will be consequences. So I will accept those consequences with humility upon my head. And at no point does Bali Maharaj reject those consequences. When his guru curses him, he says, yes, I'm deserving of this curse because I have disobeyed your instruction. My whole life, you have guided me, you have helped me from childhood. Right? Shukracharya is the Kul Guru of the demons. So from childhood, he's done this namkaran sanskar, he's done all the sanskaras in his life, vivaha sanskar. Like, you've helped me my whole life, and now I'm rejecting you. Of course, you have the right to be angry, and you have the right to curse me. I accept. Same thing Maharaj Parikshit, right? When he got the curse, he accepted. Yes, I understand. I did something wrong. I accept. Even if that is excusable, even if the offense is excusable, like in this case, not only is it excusable, it's glorified. His rejection of his guru is glorified. Even then, why? Because that's the system that Krishna has set up, right? That certain types of relationships have to be honored and respected. So even if we reject that, then for good reasons, there will be some consequence as a result of that activity. But in the end, his purpose is higher, right? He knows Shastra better than his spiritual master does. He knows the ultimate truth. He knows, Shukracharya knows all the Shastra in terms of rules and regulations, but he knows the purpose behind Shastra, right? That Shukracharya's point is, Vedo pranihito dharma, that dharma is laid out in the Vedas. So he's quoting Shruti and saying, you are not bound by this. And he understands this point, Vedo pranihito dharma. But Bali Maharaj knows a higher principle, which is dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. So where does this verse appear? You remember? Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam? This is in the story of Ajamil. This similar debate happens in the story of Ajamil. When the Yamadutas come to Yamaraj after having failed, you know the story? That Ajamil is dying and he says the name of Narayan.
Yes.
And then Ajamil is sinful, so he has to go to hell. But the Vishnu Dutas come because they hear the name of Narayan and they take him and they say, no, he's not going to hell. He's deserving of going back to God eventually. Right? So when he says Narayan, then the Yamadutas come to Yamaraj and they say, my dear Lord, our entire lives of taking millions of souls, taking millions of souls to hell, we have never encountered this situation where anyone has questioned our judgment. Why? Because they say, Vedo pranihito dharma. The dharma is outlined in the Vedas and we are acting according to the Vedas. So this is the platform of Smarta philosophy. Smarta philosophy means that it is based on Dharma Shastra. Dharma Shastra means Smriti. Dharma Shastra is the primary form of Smriti. Therefore, those who follow Smriti are called Smartas. So that is the platform of Smarta philosophy. Vedo pranihito dharma. The rules are all laid out in the Vedas. This is why Jaimini's Mimamsa Sutras, they begin with the phrase Athato Dharma Jignyasa. Right? Just like the Brahma Sutras, the Vedanta Sutra, it begins with the phrase Athato Brahma Jignyasa. Now let us inquire into Brahman. So the Purva Mimamsa, the Mimamsa philosophy of Jaimini, which is all the basis of Smarta philosophy, it begins with the phrase Athato Dharma Jignyasa. Now let us inquire into what is Dharma. And Dharma is Vedo Pranahito Dharma. The Dharma is that which is laid out by the Vedas. Therefore, we have to analyze and practice the rituals and injunctions given in the Vedas. And that will make us pure, it will make us prosperous, it will make us advance. And that is nothing wrong with that, except it is the partial truth, that there is something that higher than that. And Yamaraj, who is one of the Mahajans, just like Bali Maharaj, he tells his Yamadutas, he says, my dear sons, right, my dear, he speaks very affectionately towards them. The Yamadutas are scary, they're frightening to all of us, they're horrifying actually. But to him, they're his children. And he says, my dear Yamadutas, you have to recognize that then what you are saying, there's something higher. And then he says that famous verse, Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. That dharma is actually that which is given by the Lord himself. And therefore, that which helps us achieve the Lord, that is actual dharma. And that is the principle upon which Bali Maharaj is acting here. Right? That dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. That Bhagavan himself gives dharma. So if he is here in front of me and he's begging, then that is dharma. Not what the Vedas are saying. And this principle, Prabhupada is explaining in the purport, that Avaishnava Guru Nasya, that someone who is an Avaishnava, who is not a Vaishnava, is not a guru. Even they may be very qualified, but Vaishnava Shvapacho Guru, that a Vaishnava who is even a dog-eater family, an outcast family, that person is guru. Even though the Vedas insist that only Brahmins can be gurus. But higher than that principle is dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam, is the idea that dharma is meant to achieve the Lord. So therefore he's ready to reject his instruction, his shiksha. And because shiksha is the heart of diksha, therefore by rejecting his instruction, he is also rejecting his spiritual master. In other words, Jiva Goswami makes it very clear that the purpose of diksha is to give shiksha, is to facilitate, to create an easy conduit for giving of shiksha. If we reject shiksha, then there's no meaning to diksha. Right? This is why if we are not following the instructions of our spiritual master, then actually we have rejected our guru. And this is why Prabhupada always says that we should not keep guru like a pet dog. I have my guru, right? So now this mark is checked, right? And whenever I need some material prosperity, some blessings for my material life, then the guru will come. Just like whenever you want to play with your dog, this is why people like dogs, right? Some people like dogs better than family members, because family members have so many conditions and qualifications and demands, and you have to satisfy their desires. But dogs don't. You can ignore them when you want. No, you can close them up, tie them down, put them outside. And when you're ready, when you have a desire to play with them, then come and immediately they're ready to play, right? So Prabhupada said, don't keep guru like dog, which means when I don't need his instruction, it's too complicated, too difficult, I'm too much desiring to enjoy, then we reject guru. And when we need him, because we have a new house and we want him to purify the house, so please Guru Maharaj, come to my home and take my prasad and this and that. Then we use guru for our satisfaction, right? For our benefit. This is like keeping guru like dog. So that mentality of how is it that we please our spiritual master, not how does the spiritual master pleases us. This can be a very subtle distinction, right? We don't realize that we slip from one to the other. I remember some years ago, Gopal Krishna Maharaj was visiting the United States, and his sannyasi disciple Janardhan Maharaj was traveling with him. And in one particular city, one disciple was pushing Maharaj to come to his house. Maharaj had a very, very packed schedule of like 3 programs every day. And this house was an hour and a half drive in one direction away. And because of his insistence, Maharaj felt obliged to go. And Janardhan Maharaj was very upset at this. He said, this is not the mood of the disciple to the spiritual master. That why the spiritual master is coming all this way to the United States after all this travel. He's made so much effort. You come to see him where he is at. Why are you insisting that he put in so much effort? Why? For your benefit, right? For your aggrandizement. Oh, my house will be purified. He'll come and step foot here. Everything in my grihastha life will be auspicious. The same instruction you're getting there, you can get somewhere else where he is at. You don't have to make him come to receive that instruction. But no, you want him to come. Why? Because it will benefit you in some way. So sometimes even when we think we are serving our spiritual master, in fact, we are using the spiritual master for our benefit only. We're thinking, what is it that I want to? Or Hanumat Preshak Maharaj often says that people will cook 20 items for me, but no one will ask me what I want to eat. Instead, he says this is the biggest austerity of a sannyasi is prasad. Because I will go to some place, and instead of cooking what I want to eat, they will cook what they want to eat, their favorite dish. And then they will serve it to me and insist that I should like it. And then they will stand there and watch until I put it in my mouth, and then I must smile in order to assure them that it is good. So in this way, we are making our spiritual master do so much tapasya, right? Instead of asking, how does he want me to serve him? And of course, the most important way in which the spiritual master wants us to serve him is how? By following his instructions. Right? This is the most important way. Everything else that we get to massage his feet, that we get to touch his chappals, that we get to feed him, that we get to host him, all of these things are secondary. They are useful to the extent that they facilitate us in actually hearing properly and executing his instructions. That is the heart of what is diksha, is shiksha. And if we reject those instructions as we don't follow them, then there's no meaning to diksha, no matter how much we do Guru Puja and no matter how much we do, we bring him and we cook a big feast for him and write big offerings, it doesn't have much meaning, right? If we're not following his shiksha. Of course, then there's the added problem, which is to say, who can actually follow the instructions of the spiritual master perfectly, right? At least for myself, I'm not perfect in following the instructions of my spiritual master. Perhaps others are not also, right? That we try and we fail, and we try and we fail. So in that situation, are we rejecting the instructions of our spiritual master? No, we're not rejecting. We're trying. There's a difference between trying and rejecting. Trying means that we hold those instructions as the primary goal of our life. That is the goal of our life. And then we spend our life trying to get to that goal. Always we are dissatisfied with our own situation and eager to make progress. Rejection means that we ignore the instruction of the spiritual master. We are satisfied with where we are at, and we make no attempt to progress further. So just for example, Srila Prabhupada received the instruction from his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, 1922, 23. He received the instruction from his guru that you should preach in English. You should write in English. You should preach in the West. He received this instruction so early on when he was a young man, a young grihastha. He had small children at home. Did he follow that instruction immediately? No. There was a lifetime in preparation. It took him decades after that to finally cross the ocean and come to the West, to start writing Srimad Bhagavatam. It was in the Radha Damodar temples that he was writing Srimad Bhagavatam. And then soon after coming to the West. So has he rejected the instruction of his guru? No. In fact, quite the contrary. Prabhupada said that I never for one moment forgot the instructions of my spiritual master. Not even for one moment. But I always kept it in my mind as my primary goal in life. This is, as we were saying yesterday, Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chittite Korya Aikya Arna Koriho Mane Asha. Right? That means that instruction becomes our life and soul. And throughout his life, Prabhupada was thinking, how can I fulfill that instruction? He said, initially I was thinking, I need to earn enough money. And when I earn enough money, then I will be able to fulfill his instruction. Otherwise, without that, how can I? And then he realized that that's not the way. Krishna wasn't allowing that. His business was not running well. He was not very comfortable. He was not very, everything was failing, materially speaking. His products were not doing well. So he realized, no, Krishna doesn't want this. This is not a condition for following the instruction. Then he was thinking, let's preach here in India. Right? He created the League of Devotees in Allahabad, or Jhansi. He created the League of Devotees and he started that and started writing and preaching and so on. So he realized, no, this is no. So he tried again and again and again. He tried so many times. Then finally he went to Sumati Murarji and he said, I need a ticket on your steamship to go to America. And then finally he was able to fulfill that instruction. So, but not only was he able to fulfill that instruction, but as he attempted to fulfill that instruction, the instruction itself expanded. It manifested. He understood what was within that instruction. Right? So sometimes the spiritual master will give us an instruction that we think means this. So we try to achieve this. But in the process of achieving X, we realize that he also meant Y and Z and everything else, right? That one instruction, in that instruction, there's a whole world that is there. In fact, the instruction that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave Srila Prabhupada was to, when you get time and money, he said, what was it exactly? Yeah, print books. I said print books in English. He wanted him to write in English. That was his instruction. He never told him to build temples. He never told him to hold Rath Yatras. He never told him to open restaurants and farm communities. He never told him to have 10,000 disciples. None of those were officially part of the instruction. The instruction was actually very narrow. Right? It was to preach in English, but specifically for writing, for books. But Srila Prabhupada recognized that if I write these books in English, then I need to get people to read them also. For this, I need to travel to the West. And if I travel to the West, and I need to give these to people who are willing to read, to hear, therefore I need to start public Sankirtan. So he sat down in Tompkins Square Park to do Kirtan, right, in public. And then he realized that once these devotees are coming after hearing, then they need some place to be trained up and to worship Krishna. Therefore, we need temples. And all these temples need to be managed somehow. Otherwise, the property will be lost. Therefore, we need an incorporated society, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And now all these devotees are having children, and these children need. So therefore, we need schools, we need gurukuls. Right? So from that one instruction, he realized that so much is there in that instruction. Sometimes people feel that, oh, my guru has not given me much instruction. Right? He didn't. Prabhupada was so lucky he got big instruction from his guru. But he didn't get a big instruction. He got a very small instruction. But he made it into a big instruction by understanding. Just like in the relationship between Dronacharya and Arjun. You remember maybe this story that one time Arjun was shooting arrows in the dark. Actually, this started off with Bhim, because Bhim was eating in the dark.
Yes.
And Arjun woke up and he was saying, because Bhim used to get hungry quite regularly. So Arjun woke up and he said, how is it that your hand knows where your mouth is? So Bhim said, you don't know? Even the hands have eyes. Even your hands have eyes. And Arjun thought about this. And he thought, if his hands can find the plate and his mouth without any problem, then why cannot my hands find my target at night? So he went to target practice, and just by using the power of sound, he was shooting arrows on target. And this sound woke up Dronacharya. And he said, wow, I never taught you this, Arjun. I never taught you this. And Arjun's response was, Guru Maharaj, you have taught me everything. And this you have also taught me. And Dronacharya, at that point, he said that, Arjun, I bless you to become the best archer in this world, Sarvashresh Dhanudha. Why? Because you have taken, he said, some people, in fact, he explains this to Ashwatthama later, because Ashwatthama becomes very jealous. He says, why have you made him the best archer and not me? I'm your son. And he says, because you have taken what I have given you, you've accepted it, and you have kept it to this much. I gave you this much, and you kept it to this much. Whereas Arjun, I give him this much, and he turns it into this much. So that is the quality, can take the shiksha from the spiritual master, which may be only this much. And by this much, the disciple turns it into this much. Because he sees, oh, all of this comes from that instruction. a whole world is embedded in the instruction of the spiritual master. Just like Srila Prabhupada gave Satsvarup Maharaj the instruction to produce Back to Godhead magazine. Prabhupada did this in India, and then when he came to the US, he wanted to restart it. So he gave Satsvarup Maharaj that instruction. And Satsvarup Maharaj was not a writer. He had not produced any magazines or any books. But from that one instruction, Satsvarup Maharaj is now one of the most published authors, perhaps the most, in all of ISKCON. He's written dozens and dozens of books, and he is the one who wrote the official biography of Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, which is like Shastra. Right? So many people have become devotees as a result of Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. Right? So that empowerment came from one simple instruction. A whole world of instruction manifested from that. And from his writings, then so many people became attached to Krishna consciousness, and then so many people took Diksha from him and he inspired them. So much happened from that one instruction. So if we accept Shiksha and we make it our life and soul, and we attempt throughout our life that somehow or the other, I need to fulfill the instruction of my spiritual master. Whatever it takes, I have to do it. And we continuously try to progress, then that instruction will give us, the instruction itself will give us the power to fulfill it. Right? It will give us a world of Shakti. We will become empowered by the instruction of the spiritual master. And if we ignore that instruction, if we reject it, or if we provide excuses for it, right, that instruction, I mean, Guru Maharaj was giving that instruction in a general way, not really for me, or no, he understands that instruction doesn't actually apply to me, or whatever. We make excuses. See, there's two different things. One is to say that instruction is my life and soul, but it will take me time to fulfill it. I'm unable at this moment. The other is that instruction is not applicable to me, or I don't really need to follow it, or it's not, it's not a good instruction, or it's not something I can do, maybe in my next life. Those are two different attitudes. The former will lead guaranteed to success, 100%. And the second will lead guaranteed to failure in spiritual life. Yasya prasada, bhagavat prasada, yasya prasada, nagati. So if we don't follow Shiksha, then there's no meaning to Diksha. That's the point. And this is why when Bali Maharaj rejected the Shiksha of his spiritual master, then he also rejected the spiritual master, right? Then Diksha was also gone. And then at that point, Bali Maharaj treated it as if he was no longer his disciple. That's why he cursed. The Guru never curses the disciple. But because he felt that he is not my disciple anymore, therefore he cursed him, right? Because he said, this is now, you've rejected my Shiksha, therefore my Diksha is also meaningless at this point, right? And he said, goodbye, right? Good riddance to you, good luck. Now I can't help you anymore. Okay, so I think we should stop there and see if there's any questions or comments or thoughts that anyone has. Yes.
So, few things came to my mind when we talked about how Shukracharya was able to identify and see the Lord, and also to an extent that he could predict. We also discussed that only the Lord is only visible to his pure devotees. So I just wanted to understand if you could explain how that happened, because Bali Maharaj
Why Shukracharya was able to.
Yeah.
Very nice question. So actually, Shukracharya could not recognize Krishna, right? What he saw Krishna as, what he saw Vishnu as, Prabhupada explains this in another part of Srimad Bhagavatam. He says, those who practice smarta, they do something called Panchopasana Puja, which is they worship 5 different deities. Surya, Ganesh, Surya, Ganesh, Durga, Shiva, and Vishnu. Vishnu is always worshipped by the Smartas, but he's not worshipped as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's worshipped as one of the Devas, as a demigod, who is basically useful for certain types of things. In other words, if we told a Smarta Brahmin that a yajna cannot be performed without Lord Vishnu, that every yajna is for the purpose of Lord Vishnu's satisfaction, they would agree. Because they also understand that Vishnu is Yajna Purusha, that he is the form of the yajna itself.
Yeah.
So they also worship Vishnu, but the worship of Vishnu for them is not for the purpose of surrender to the Supreme Lord. It is for the purpose of the fact that by Vishnu attending the yajna, and Shiva and Ganesh and Durga, yajna will be successful, and as a result, I will get the proper fruits of that yajna. So this is called karma kanda, fruitive activity. So therefore, even though they are seeing Vishnu and they recognize that Vishnu is great, they don't actually see Vishnu. They see him only as a demigod, as a deva.
So they don't know the Supreme Lord is Lord Krishna, who's also.
No. They don't know. They see him merely as one other demigod. And his function is just like the other demigods. I go to Mother Parvati or Durga for this purpose. I go to Ganesha to remove obstacles. I go to Surya for good health, and I go to Vishnu for this. That's all. He's just one in a list. Yeah.
It's that Bali Maharaj actually called for a moment before he rejected. Whereas previously, when he saw a Brahman asking, he didn't think, he just gave. Whereas quite opposite happened with Shukracharya. He just did his analysis, he couldn't get it. But in this episode, he does quickly understand that this is Vishnu, this is Bhagavan, it's taking him. That's very contradictory.
Yeah, no, this is actually, it's a very nice comment, a very nice observation that actually when Bali Maharaj gave charity, he did not think, and this is Shukracharya's point to him. He said, at least ek minute to sochte, right? You should have thought for at least one moment before you made such a huge promise, understood the situation. He was very upset at his disciple or harming himself. You should have thought before. It's like when a child crosses the street. You should have looked in both ways, right? Like, take a minute, check before you just run across. So he's looking at Bali Maharaj like a child. He's saying you should have thought first. But from this, we learn something very important, that when it comes to following what is dharma, we should not hesitate. And when it comes to rejecting dharma, we have to think very, very carefully. Right? So giving in charity, this is Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yajna, Dana, Tapa, Karma, Nat Tyajyam, Karyam Evatat. He says, Yajna, Dana, and Tapa, these three things, sacrifice, charity, and penance, Nat Tyajyam, should never be given up. Karyam Evatat, they must be done, Krishna said. Why? Pavanani Manishana, it purifies even the great souls. So when it comes to practicing what is right, what is dharma, there's no need for hesitation. We can do it just like that. It should be second nature in us, right? It should be a part of our very fabric that we immediately do it. And for something that is not following dharma, ultimately, our knowledge of dharma comes through Shastra. Right? That when Krishna is not there directly present, then Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, these are giving us knowledge. When something is going against what Shastra says, there may be reason, some circumstance, special situation, right, that we may need to make some adjustment or whatever. But we have to think. Then we have to think a lot. We have to think very carefully. We have to get proper advice from others doing it. So it's a very nice observation that these two, his reaction is very different in both situations. He's very self-assured in the first and very hesitant in the second.
So very carefully decide decisions when at this juncture when it's not according to dharma, but the higher ultimate purpose behind it. It was just Bali Maharaj only. Whereas in the conditioned state, very many people sometimes they just go with the flow and they don't think. Whereas a lot of times conditioned sadhakas also they take their time and then decide, consult. But eventually just wanted to get an idea on proper decision making. Because we almost are sadhakas, we also form mistakes.
Yes. So this is why we need specifically this the spiritual master guru, right? Means all instructions are there in Shastra, and we can study Shastra. So what is the need of guru? The need of the guru is able to take that instruction of Shastra and apply it to our immediate circumstance, and to recognize when is it that we may need to make some adjustment. Just like Srila Prabhupada, for us here in the West, he made so many decisions that technically, one from a smarta perspective or dharma shastra perspective, were against Shastra, right? Like, for example, crossing the ocean to come to the West, right? This is, sannyasi is not supposed to do this, right? Wearing sewn cloth, this was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's adjustment, right? Wearing sewn cloth, sannyasi is not supposed to do this. In terms of giving Brahman Diksha, or any Diksha, to mlechas, people who are not from Indian background, who are not from upper caste background, giving Brahman Diksha to women, right? All these things were not done in the history of Vaishnavism. But Prabhupada did it on this principle that dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam, right? So he understood what is the purpose of Shastra, and if Shastra can elevate Ajamil, then it can elevate Americans and Indians and Russians, elevate every men, women, doesn't matter. Everyone can be elevated by this process, right? So that type of adjustment, that decision-making process, this is why guru is so important. Because if we make that decision-making process just on our own intelligence, it can be very risky, right? Because Krishna says that what is it? Ye shastra vidim utsrajya. That if someone rejects the instructions of Shastra, then there's no hope, Krishna says, for that person. Like, they're lost. So we have to be very careful when we make any kind of adjustment. So this is why we need guru and sadhu for that purpose.
You will follow offline.
Okay, great.
Very close to this topic.
Okay. Kishori Radha Mataji has a question. You can unmute yourself, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you for these nice discourses over the last 3 days. I really appreciate your how you correlate from different shastras, and also with the clarity with which you provide practical applications in our spiritual life. It's very helpful, Prabhu. Thank you. My question is, Prabhu, Bali Maharaj became a Mahajana by the act of this Atma Nivedana. But before that in his life, we see that he was, conquering all these planets. And so was that part of his dharma, or was that lust for power? And if so, then how do we understand that? Because like Ambarish Maharaj, these exalted personalities behave a certain way or act a certain way in their lives that's throughout their lives. So how is it that for Bali Maharaj, did that one act make him a Mahajana? Was he a Mahajana the whole time?
Yes. So actually there are devotees who are eternally liberated, eternally perfect, and then there are those who become perfect through practice or through mercy, right? There's Nitya Siddhas, Sadhana Siddhas, and Kripa Siddhas. So, of course, to make a judgment on a devotee is impossible for us, nor should we try. But Srila Prabhupada makes clear in that purport we read, 2 days ago? He says that Bali Maharaj was following the example of another Mahajan, which is Shambhu or Lord Shiva, in accepting the water. And he said, in this way, by following the process, and today we see how Bali Maharaj is very nicely following also the principles laid out by Yamaraj, who is also Mahajan, right? And we also see that he is constantly striving to follow the instructions of Prahlad Maharaj and his example. And now this today was like the third time Prahlad Maharaj was brought up in this story. Again and again he's brought up, right? So Prahlad Maharaj is also Mahajan. So Prabhupada makes a point in the purport that by following the example of the Mahajans, he will also one day become Mahajan. And this is the system. So in other words, Bali Maharaj becomes Mahajan by his act of Atmanivedana. Prabhupada makes that very clear, that this is the process by which he becomes Mahajan. Now, of course, we don't know internally what is the situation, but we do know that Bali Maharaj was not acting out of lust or just greed or something like that. That Bali Maharaj was actually very, he was, as being the king of the demons, that was his role, his job, his duty to be king and to rule. And in fact, so much so was that his duty that even after he surrenders everything to Krishna, Krishna still tells him that you have to rule the demons. And I will help you in that process, right? So that was his dharma, that was his job, and he had to perform it. And part of the dharma of the demons is always to fight with the demigods. This is their job also. So they're always fighting with each other. So in this way, we see even Prahlad Maharaj, he continued ruling. And it says he was a great king, and he fought many battles, even after he saw Lord Nrsimhadev. But the difference is that when a devotee does it, they're always trying to help those who are dependent on them, not just materially, but also spiritually. And that was Prahlad Maharaj's stated goal, was to help all, he said, all these people in this material ignorance, help them to rise, right? So Bali Maharaj is doing his duty, and he's doing his duty very well. But by recognizing that ultimately the goal of every duty, and Prabhupada explains this in one of the purports in this chapter, he says, Varnashrama charavata purushena parapuman. He says that the goal of Varnashram is Vishnur Aradhyate, is to worship Lord Vishnu. He was doing his Varnashram duty very nicely, but by this Leela, he is able to do Atma Nivedanam, and as a result of that, he becomes a Mahajan. Is that okay?
Yes, that's very helpful, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
If I have the
Thank you for
opportunity,
attending.
no, thank you, Prabhu. I'm sorry, I'm on my phone, so I'm struggling with my video a little bit.
Sure.
But if I have the opportunity, or if there's time, then I'd like to ask one more at the end once others have taken their chance. Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay. Yes. Someone else had their hand up here. So what's up? Okay. Anyone else here who hasn't asked yet? Okay. Kishori Radha Mataji, please go ahead, and then we'll end with your question.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, and thank you to the devotees for allowing me to ask. So, Prabhu, my other question was that in this situation, Bali Maharaj was, I mean, from an external point of view, he was subordinate to his guru, and yet he went against the instruction of his guru. And in practical life, if we see someone who is acting out of character, but we feel we're not in a position to say anything to them or to provide unsolicited feedback in that situation. How do we translate this situation, or is it translatable to that situation?
Yeah. Really good question. If sometimes, what if we are not the ones who are trying to make this decision, like Bali Maharaj was, but actually we're observing someone else act in unconventional ways? So the two things. One is that if we have responsibility over that person, then of course, then we have to raise a question. We have to say, okay, why are you acting in this way? When, this is what Guru, Sadhu, Shastra have given us, and yet you are behaving like this, then it becomes our responsibility to at least raise the question. Perhaps they have a good reason, but at least we have to raise the question. And if there's no good reason, then we have to offer some correction. That's if we have responsibility for someone, like Shukracharya had for Bali Maharaj, then we have to raise. So this situation of responsibility is described by Rishabdev in the verse that Prabhupada quotes in the purport to the one we read, the last purport we read, where he says, Guru nasasyat, what is it? Guru nasasyat, swajano nasasyat, pita nasasyat. He says that one should not become a mother, a father, a guru, a demigod, and I think he says a superior of some other. Anyway, there's five. I think there's five different things he says. King, yes, yeah. We should not become any of these if we're not able to liberate our dependence from the cycle of birth and death. So in that case, we have a responsibility. But outside that circumstance, typically we don't. If we're not a Raja, that is, we're not in a directly a management position, if we're not a mother, father to that person, if we're not guru for that person, then we have no right, or it becomes very risky to then offer some correction because it may cause offense. In that situation, when we are observing someone act in unconventional ways, that seems that it might be unauthorized, and yet we don't know. We don't have responsibility, number one, and we don't have full knowledge of what their situation is. Then it is best then to refer the matter to someone who does have responsibility over their situation. Then there's no offense. Otherwise, we run the risk of committing offense, of Vaishnava Aparadh. Right? So there's a very nice example of this in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, when who is it, Gadadhar Pandit visits Pundarik Vidyanidhi. I forget, is it Gadadhar Pandit who goes to? So.
Yes.
Yes, it is. Huh? So Pundarik Vidyanidhi is a very advanced devotee, and he's living a very lavish lifestyle that typically Vaishnavas try to avoid. He's got a very nice, beautiful house, and he's dressed very rich clothing and everything. And so Gadadhar Pandit goes there and he thinks, what is this? A Vaishnava is not supposed to behave in this way. This is a sense enjoyer. And then he recognizes that actually Pundarik Vidyanidhi, they discuss Srimad Bhagavatam, I think it is. And Pundarik Vidyanidhi is in great ecstasy as he recites Srimad Bhagavatam. And he immediately recognizes that I've made a mistake. I've misjudged this Vaishnava. In fact, he then begs him for shelter at his lotus feet. So we don't know. We don't know. Sometimes things may be, we may not understand the full circumstance, and we may be judging someone from one thing that we have seen. Usually, actually, that's the case. Very few people we know entirely, their whole circumstance. And people we know entirely, their whole circumstance, we tend to be very generous with them, like our family members. We know the full situation. And so we're generous with them. We're like, I understand what you're going through. Most people, we only know one little thing about them, one sliver. We look at one thing and then we make immediate judgment. And that's very risky. That's very, very dangerous. Better, we take the matter to someone who knows their full situation. And that's usually someone who has responsibility for them. And then at that point, we say, this is what I think is happening, but I'm not sure. Can you please address? And once we take it to them, then we let go of it. We don't follow up, we don't push, we don't jab, we don't, irritate, we don't keep, what did you do? What did you do? So what happened? Then that becomes prajalpa. Then it turns into gossip. Did you hear what happened? And I took it to the temple president, I took it to the GBC and I discussed. And do you know what the result was of that discussion? And I was talking to this devotee the other day. Oh my gosh, And so then we like to churn it. We like to add masala and mix it, and develop it nicely. And then it becomes offensive. Right? It becomes prajalpa. So the process is very simple. We do our responsibility and then we let go of it. Because if we don't let go of the issue, then we will keep turning it in our mind over and over again. And that issue will become the object of our meditation. And we will suffer in our spiritual life as a result. Just like there's the story of the, two sadhus, renunciates, sannyasis, were crossing a river. And one lady was also trying to cross, but she could not cross. So one of them, in an effort to help her, picked her up and took her across, put her down, and they kept walking. And the other one was thinking, how could you, he was telling him, how could you do such a thing? How could you, this is so, and for 1 hour, he was like complaining and arguing. And the first one said, he said, I carried her for 5 minutes across the river. You have been carrying her for 1 hour now, right? In your mind. So this is often what happens when we see some problem. When we try to address it, then instead of addressing it and letting it go, we then carry that problem in our minds for the next 6 years, right? We're carrying it over and over and over again. In this way, that problem, instead of Krishna becoming the object of our meditation, that problem becomes the object of our meditation. And that person may have given it up and moved on. Even if it was a fault, they may have moved on and become perfect, right? Kshipram bhavati dharmatma. Shashvat. They quickly, the spiritual life as such, it purifies them and they move on. But we have made that problem the object of our meditation. In this way, we are now saddled with that anartha. We have taken the anartha from their heart and we have installed it nicely in our heart. And what is the use of that kind of thing? Right? So if we have responsibility, we address it and then we let it go. And if we don't have responsibility, we take it to someone who does and then we let it go. Is
Thank
okay?
you. Yes, thank you so much, Prabhu. That's really grateful to you for this clarification. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, we are well over time. So let's stop here. Thank you all so much for the good questions and discussion. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Bali Maharaj ki jai. Vamana Dev ki jai.